Well, we are on the bridge. We were trying to make nothing but a dreamer's race. It looks like we're probably going to have to watch it on TV because the bridge is not moving. That's a good thing. The bridge isn't moving, but the traffic on it would be better if it was moving. We are bumper to bumper traffic. I suspect we'll be 30 minutes on the bridge. Anyway, we never get a chance to talk. You guys see Steve when we're driving around. Sometimes Steve will be in the passenger side. There'll be some banter. You guys, many of you have never even met Jim. Jim's been a client of ours for quite a while. What was it, 4 years now, Jim? 5?
Yeah, going on 5. Yeah.
Going on 5. Jim lives in Saskatchewan, right?
Yep.
Saskatchewan. He came to Scioto, missed the Phillies race, but jumped in and we went up to watch the horse at the Meadows. Now, unfortunately, we didn't get our picture taken, but a decent night all around. Aside from one little mishap from Crantini, but a decent night all around. And then we get to watch JK Mickey Mantle go today. Now, JK Mickey Mantle paced as fast as every division except for one. That's including the Sire Stakes. That was by far the fastest Stallion Series was his. And for that horse not to race for a month and pace 50-3, come 27-2, I think it's fair to say he's going to have a pretty bright future. So, really happy with JK Mickey Mantle today. I did want to talk about, I think, highlights. Because you guys hear about my highlights all the time, but everybody's a little bit different. You know, winning the stake races, winning the next generation, then winning the Gold Cup and Saucer and PEI. I could go on and on and on about what my highlights were and how impressive this year was. But for Steve, for Jim, start with Steve. Who's your highlight at Sam?
I can only come up with one.
You can come up with 100 if you want. We're stuck on a bridge.
Well,
they're not going anywhere.
I mean, it was only a small race for Huna Madonna in Oak Grove.
That's right.
But that was incredibly exciting, and then the whole few days that followed up.
Yeah.
And I was sitting right here where I am now when that all kind of was going down. So it was kind of interesting to be involved with that. And it was well, I've never been involved with a horse that's sold for any kind of money like that ever. And although that was, not an easy decision in my head, as much as I
was surprised. You were one of the quiet holdouts.
Yeah, well, I was just going to lay back in the weeds and let it fall where it has, and I wasn't going to be in the way one way or the other. But if it had come up with a "no, we're not gonna," I probably would have been okay with that too. So, but extremely exciting that race. Because I just wasn't expecting it, and I was there live, and that certainly is going to help when I'm coming up with things that are highlights.
I suppose so, yeah.
Crantini, 100%. That's he's been a huge highlight. I've flown down to Philadelphia, driven down to the Meadows, flew down to the Meadows yesterday to watch him go, and
how was your flight yesterday?
It was grotesque. And to the point where I will never do it again. Never will you see me on a regional flight. This guy doesn't like to fit in a regional jet. The guy next to me really appreciated it.
Yeah, that's great.
but and although it didn't work out yesterday, but the whole thing, like him as a horse, being the one, signing for him in Harrisburg,
that's right too.
And making him part of the stable, and then watching him train down all along, and you going to bat for him many, many, many times when other people were, like Geldum, and you were like, no. So I don't know. He's for sure one, and
I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
Just interject for 1 second.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of people in our stable understand what went on with Crantini. So what Steve was talking about was, I was filling up our buckets as I did last year, and we had just bought Brace for Landing. There was some horses later on. Crantini was in a place in the sale where I really couldn't bid on him, right? I needed that capital to potentially make, and that's the one thing that people don't understand about the sales is, when I'm looking at hip number 480, I really like hip number 458, but 480 is on our list. If 480 is one of our potential horses, that 458 makes it really difficult to buy that horse, and I couldn't. And that is where Steve had said to me, and a number of clients have come to me and said, and I'll be happy to as long as I can afford it this year. You know, for you to buy that horse, put the shares up for sale. Steve bought the horse, and in a sense, I incurred a debt for, how many shares did you keep at the time? 20 or something? So I incurred a debt of somewhere around 80% of that horse. Now, I can't do that all the time. Do a ton of horses, I just go broke. But in that particular case, it made sense that if Steve bought Crantini, carried the debt on the horse, which he did, kept 20% and put him in the stable, that is how Crantini ended up in the stable. It wasn't actually me that bought the horse, it was Steve. And I've had a lot of people understand that that's what we did with this particular horse and ask me if I too could do that with them. Now, to a certain extent, you know, I'm going to have to reserve the right to say no, because I won't all the time. I won't always say no, and I won't always say yes, but it has to make sense to me in the sense that I'm going to carry those additional shares. So is there saleability? Is it a horse that I like? Is it a horse that I'm interested to get involved with? These are decisions that I had to make. And when it came to Crantini, there wasn't a lot of people that were going to do that. Steve was the first one we had done it that way with. I'm happy to potentially try and do that with other people, and we will, in Lexington, Harrisburg, and likely Ohio, but I got to be careful what I do too. So I want everybody to understand that moving forward.
Well, you liked him.
Yeah.
So that makes it an easier decision.
Yeah.
He did sell out relatively quickly.
He did.
So that
that would be that would play a role. I mean, if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, I want to buy hip number 71," and it's a New York trotter, again, although it's difficult to do work in New York, no disrespect to our New York clients, but New York State is incredibly difficult to get our clients as a whole, as a general group involved in, because the licensing is still so expensive. So, you know, if somebody was to come to me and say, I like this horse, I want to buy it, put it in the stable, and you know, I'll keep 20% or 25%, and then I look at the horse, and it's a horse that's not likely to sell out, or quite frankly, a horse that I don't like, I'm more likely to say, nah, I'm going to pass on this one. What we built is this incredible, complex machine, and I don't want to get caught in the spokes. I don't want to make a mistake and put myself in a tough position. So when it comes to what went on with Crantini and what will go on with some horses this year, yes, when I keep telling people, yes, the buckets will be filled. If you get shut out, you get shut out, but there will be likely scenarios where a Crantini would end up in the stable outside of the buckets because it was outside of my purchase. So just want to let everybody know that, because I did have a number of people asking specifically about how Crantini came to be in the stable, how they could potentially do something like that. That is where we're at with that. So my apologies. Keep going.
Okay. Well, I mean, and truthfully, the last one, which is a funny story on its own that we don't need to go into, but is Sintra, that when you bought them, I had less than 0% desire to own a 9-year-old pacer. I own trotters. That's what I own. I like trotters.
I do too.
Pardon me?
I do too.
Yes, I know you do. That's kind of why I'm sitting here.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's not what I was looking for. So I was like, no. And Anthony worked on me.
That's not
I never did buy in. Never did. And then he was going to the Cup and Saucer, which I totally thought was the wrong move. So again, what do I know? And so as soon as I realized he was going and Anthony was going and drive him, I said, well, now guess what? I got to own something of him. Bought a share on the site, and at least got my rooting interest. And that becomes that is in 38 years in the horse business, never won a race for 6 digits in my life.
Oh, you did now?
Yeah, so I just did.
I'll tell you what, further that also, a little side note, and I'll make a note about this later in the week. The only time this has ever happened, the place that makes the Gold Cup and Saucer trophies now, I know the gentleman's Chucker's Trophies, his name's Ray, I believe, unless he sold it, because the person that called me and messaged me, his name was Ray. He said, Anthony, I have a gentleman who's a client of yours who owned a piece of Sintra, was wondering if he could buy a replica trophy, buy a trophy from the Gold Cup and Saucer. It's never happened before. He said, knowing that you have a lot of clients, would your group be interested in purchasing a number of them? He said that they're $450, but if I get the material to make a bunch of them, you know, the price could be less. I said, well, price out 5 or 10 of them, because I guarantee you there'll be a number of people. He said it's never happened.
Buy one.
Yeah, never happened ever since the Gold Cup's inception has somebody tried to buy another trophy. And I told him I could easily see 10 of them being purchased. So I think they were like, he said they would be $450, but they'd be less if we bought a bunch of them. They're pretty cool. I mean, I actually don't have mine. I gave it to Tom in the winner's circle and said, hey, take it home. Not realizing that, hey, Tom, keep the trophy. But Tom did buy into the horse, and I want to try and support our clients best we can. Listen, I wish we had 900 trophies and give them to everybody, but just such an exciting thing, something you'll never forget. And whether you're Steve that bought 1%, a few days before the race, or whether you were somebody that played a major role in me being able to buy Sintra at the time, at the sale, at that moment, everybody should share in that, because it was, if you weren't there, like he wasn't there, he saw it on TV, he saw how emotional I was, and saw the crowd and thought it was cool. But until you're there, if you've ever been to the Gold Cup and Saucer, and most definitely if you were there this year, you know what I'm talking about. Like I had Dexter Dunn, who's leading driver in the world, come up to me and was talking to me for 10 minutes about Prince Edward Island, how cool that race looked. The people in PEI and the people in this industry don't realize the amount of people that watch the Gold Cup and Saucer. It was baffling to me. As I said in an interview, I didn't even get to the Moncton Airport. At 4 o'clock in the morning, I rolled into the Moncton Airport, and I had messages from almost every state that they race in, from people that I had met along the way, New Zealand and Australia, people in both places, people on the other side of the world, people in Ohio, New Jersey, New York. Anybody that I'd come across that races horses, for the most part, appeared to say, hey, that was an awesome win, congratulations, it looks like a cool race. These people watched the race, and it really is an amazing race and an amazing feeling. Now, I'm biased, obviously, a little bit, because I'm from Prince Edward Island, but if you get a chance to go to the Gold Cup and Saucer the third week in August in any calendar year, I would suggest you probably should. So, those are yours. Jim, what about you?
Well, there's so many to talk about, Anthony. It's been such a fun and exciting year to be part of the stable. If I had to pick out 2 or 3, I guess I would start with the Next Generation.
That's right, Swinging Senorita. Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
And the way she's raced since then,
yeah.
She's top 3 for sure in the Ohio Sire Stakes.
Yeah.
And that last race out of the 8-hole, only beaten by a bit by one of the other top 3. I'm looking forward to the rest of the season with her for sure.
Yeah, she's a nice filly.
And Steve touched on Crantini. I was fortunate enough to be with you and Steve and Amy last year down in Harrisburg when you guys bought those 2 amongst others, and I got in on both of them, thankfully. And at that point in time, when the sale was over, we kind of, if you remember, we kind of did some ratings on the horses. We bought it in Harrisburg, and just for fun. Yeah. And if somebody would have said to us at that time, you're going to have 2 horses in the Pennsylvania Sire Stake final next fall, would have been tickled pink. But sitting here right now and having the number 1 and number 4 points leaders in the Pennsylvania Sire Stakes is just incredible. Yeah. And so I'm so looking forward to next Sunday, what that brings, and then the consolation and the Stallion Series as well. So many horses in there for the stable. So, and I guess a couple other things that come to mind for me. Maybe a little bit of a unheralded horse that we just sold, Blue Biodeo.
Oh yeah, Jesus
Christ! Her setting the track record down in Oak Grove and coming back at 52-2 and 52. Like, she raced great. Some of those come from behind wins that she had were exciting. I didn't get in on Sintra, and I'm still kicking my butt to this day that I didn't, because, unlike you and Steve, I am partial to Pacers. I grew up in Western Canada, and that's all we had up there was Pacers. So, but when Sintra came up for sale, I'm thinking $75,000. I love the horse. I love what he accomplished. He's 9 years old, or his better days behind him. Can I invest my dollars better elsewhere? And so I sat back, but even not having any shares to watch the Gold Cup and Saucer that night, it was just electric. I had chills going up my spine just being part of the stable and watching and cheering for all of you that do own him, and to watch the way he did it was fascinating. And to watch you Anthony on the horse, like the excitement that you've said yourself on these videos that you don't usually show too much emotion out there, but it all came bubbling up to the surface, and good for you and good for that classy old horse.
He's such a nice horse. The way he, I said it in the interview, but to watch Sintra, I don't know that I've ever seen a cooler customer in my life than this horse. And it's almost like like I said to you guys, when I moved him, I thought at the 8th pole, the way the race had set up, I thought my only two biggest rivalries in that race were slugging it out and going to the quarter pole. I really thought at the 8th pole I was probably going to win the Gold Cup and Saucer. And knowing that you could just move that horse and sit on the outside. Like, here's a horse, he didn't get excited in the first turn and want to mix it up. When I came first over, he was easy just to sit there. I just parked him on the outside like a car. And I didn't want to overcommit because, again, I didn't want to overdrive him. I thought in my mind I was going to win the Gold Cup. Just don't screw it up in the last half. And to start into the backstretch, I wasn't going to move him forward. I really was a little surprised that Austin Sorey's horse was done there at the 5/8. I really thought he'd take me to the 3/4 pole or halfway around the turn before he'd kind of let go. And actually, Sintra knew before I did that he was done. He was just sitting there quietly, and as soon as Austin moved in the bike, it was so weird. It just happened. Everything happened so quickly. Everybody missed it, but I didn't. The horse literally knew that the horse on the front was done. He went from sitting quiet to in full-on attack mode in the blink of an eye. You guys see me kick the earplugs, but that's only after this horse starts 2 steps forward in an aggressive way. And it was apparent to me only a couple of seconds, but a couple of seconds after it was to him, that he was, now was the time to go. And he's just such a cool horse. There's a horse that went in 1:50-1. That's the fastest anybody has ever paced ever in the Charlottetown Driving Park since its existence. He tied the track record. He has to be winded. I jog him, pull him up in the far turn, and he walks. He's not excitable. He's not bouncing around. He walks the entire fence line and stops and takes pictures with people. There are 2 or 3 ladies that had pictures inches from Sintra's face right after he went in with 50-1. And horses just don't do that. They bounce around and, they're fidgety and agitated until their heart rate comes down. It was like this horse just went 1:25. He just stopped up to the fence and walked and stopped and was looking at people. It was the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life in horse racing. By far the coolest thing. So, yeah, I mean, Sintra wasn't, the whole story is wonderful from looking back at it. But Sintra wasn't bought. He was never professed that he was going to be purchased to race in the Gold Cup. We had our Gold Cup horse. It was Patrick the Piranha. We weren't bringing Sintra to the Gold Cup. It was only after Sylvain Filion won with him. I think he won with him, and he said to me, "You take him to the Gold Cup." And I'm like, I don't think so. He's 9, and he goes, "Geez, he's really good right now." And it was Jody right after that said to me, he goes, "Just so you know," he said, "he's a big horse, but he gets around half as good as he gets around any track." And Jody drove him his whole life, so no one on earth knows him better than Jody. And I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." Which he probably is kicking himself now for telling me that because he finished second. But just the way the horse went was just incredible. And just circling back, both to Jim and Steve, because you guys, obviously been friends for 4 years and more with Steve, but looking at the way the stable is operating, and you touched on a good point with Blue Bayou deal, that was not an easy thing for me to do. That wasn't, a lot of the times when we buy or sell horses, it's quick, it makes sense, check all the boxes quick, yes, sell the horse or buy the horse, it's done quickly. But with this particular filly, I thought that amount of money might have even been a little low after her race. Now, we have to bite the bullet. We made the deal before the race where we split the purse, and after the race you take the horse. I like to do this in case Blue Bayou deal makes a break, right? And then I don't want the deal to fall through. So, you know what? You take half, we take half, we race her. Whatever happens, and that's that. I'd much rather do it that way. Except this time it kind of bit us in the ass because she went out and jogged in 52. But I think it's important that we turn some of these horses over. You guys have, at the start of this video, or these videos, you heard me talk about how Brave World was on the sale block. I had one of my partners for Brave World question that day and wonder why would we possibly sell him? He just won in 53. Well, the horse only races for $7,000 and wins in 53. I think he's undervaluing himself. And there's no place for us to race him in a manner where he can race that hard and get paid fairly for it. I guess is the number one reason to look at it. Number two, he's an 8-year-old, and although Sintra's 9, Brave World is raced in a different capacity. He's been run right to the edge a lot of times, and he's been a good horse for us and a good horse for a lot of people. I just felt like he was in the twilight of his career, and he would do somebody some good. Here's a horse that's probably a 25 or 30 claimer in the U.S. at a number of jurisdictions. There's nowhere to race him. That class doesn't exist in Canada, and I don't want to ship him somewhere to race him there. And I guess that's where the Brave World sale would come from, where, Grace is a different one. You might say, well, why are you selling Grace when you just bought 2 horses that fit the same class she does right now? Well, because Grace has a couple of grassroots left, I think, one anyway.
At least one.
Yeah. So let's say 1 or 2 grassroots left, right? She's made 100 and some thousand. She's beaten Adair Castle in her life, but most importantly, she only has 2 wins. And as she gets to 3 wins, and then 4 wins, and then 5 wins, now you have a horse with 5 wins and over 100 made. That horse is tough to sell. So when you look at her right now, she's got the rest of the stakes season ahead of her, which is interesting to a lot of people. She only has 2 wins. And she is, I suspect, I haven't looked at the points right now, but she would be making into the semifinals for sure right now. So that's an interesting horse that somebody might pay good money for. And if I think she's worth X and we're going to get X plus another X for her, and then we can buy a filly over here that's similar, doesn't matter what Grace made, that money's gone. So really you have a 3-year-old trotting filly with 2 wins and a lot of money made, as opposed to another filly with 2 wins and not a lot of money made. That filly actually fits a lot more classes than Grace right now. So that is where that goes. And the fluid, I know I was going to ask both you guys, but I wish that, Steve was Steve and Jim was more of a, own a little, love it a lot, so we could have a little bit of a banter here. But I think a lot of people, that's the one question I've got all year, is that, Anthony, are you not getting away from your original model, own a little, love it a lot? And I have to disagree all the time with people. In some respect, you're right. We aren't running the stable the same way we did 7 years ago and 6 years ago, where we had bought horses and tried to find classes for them and hide them and race them around. No, we're being much more aggressive with our stable now, to the point where these horses are coming out of the bullpen and throwing heat and being in a position to always do good. And by changing it from, let's hope we can get them in where they do good, to, we want horses that can do good next week. When we enter our horses in the box, I want to know they're going in a class where they can win. By making those changes and adjustments, it really changes the way the stables looked. Like, I don't want to know how much money we made. I don't want to know how many wins. It's still always going to be about the entertainment value. But I know, for me, it's much more fun when we win. So I'm curious your thoughts and Jim's thoughts. And again, these are 2 gentlemen that are going to be on my side. But at the same token, I want other people to have the chance to weigh in and not just hear from me about it.
Well, I mean, you said it a couple of lines back, which is, you can own it a little and love it a lot, all you like, but and look at entertainment value, and that's for sure. But it's still it's still an entertainment business too. Like it is. It is. You just can't go into it and just willy nilly just throw money around and you're like, oh well, we're enjoying ourselves.
I guess the argument I'm gonna play.
Okay.
I'm going to play the other alter ego in this one and say, when Anthony approaches us, this group, it's always about disposable income. So although it is a business, it isn't a business when you go to Disney World. It isn't a business when you go to an NFL game. It isn't your business to go to a Blue Jays game. That is your entertainment. And if I'm preaching disposable income is what should be sourcing the stable and it should be about entertainment, I can't then switch gears and say it has to be about earning money, because it can't be.
No.
To me, it has to be about doing the best we can all the time. And how do we do that? How do we constantly do better? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, but so let's use the Disney World analogy for 1 sec.
Okay.
Your time there is discriminate. You say, oh, I want to go on Space Mountain, and you look and the lineup is like 2.5 hours long, and you go, that's not worth my time. Right? So time equates to money in this particular instance, or maybe not to some people, but like everything has to be looked at a little bit differently for everybody, but you have to make decisions. What's best for this guy and this person and that lady and that horse and in this business, and it's just like, truthfully, do you grow to this point if you just keep plodding along, winning every once in a while?
I think you make a big point. I mean, it has to be a big tent. When I was in politics, I hated when they use those stupid analogies. But having having everybody under a big tent, obviously what that means is I can cater to you, and I can cater to her and him and him and him and him, and everybody wants something. I can give them that. And now that's a lie.
Mm-hmm.
I can't keep all the horses and race them in a way that we do well. The horses that we've sold, so I'll tell you my argument with Blue Bayou Deal. She only got 4 or 5 wins right now, but by the time we get her out of Kentucky, she's going to have 6 or 7. She's going to have 150,000 made, right? Where do I race that horse? You can say, oh, you race her in the non-winners at 10 at the Meadows. Okay, there's 4 and 5-year-olds in there, and they can get pretty salty sometimes. Or you can go to Ohio. Any place you go with a horse with that amount of money and that amount of wins, it's going to get salty. And here's the problem. If I can prove she can't do in there, why would you ever buy her? Why would anybody ever buy a horse that I've already proved can't do in the place that I'm trying to sell her to do in? And when I'm looking at it, saying, okay, Blue Bayou Deal has... Now, they actually took her back to New Jersey. They're going to race her in the Meadowlands next week, which I don't know if I really agree with that, but it's their horse. They can do what they want. I felt Kentucky third leg, Kentucky final. Now, it's worth noting also that the other division went in 51-4 the day she went in 52. So it wasn't like she was a standout on that day in Kentucky. I truly believe she will probably win the final. But that's 25. The leg before is 75. So if they win out, which they're not going to do because now they're in New Jersey. So,
so they've given up on that.
I don't know whether they plan on racing her both. I don't know. All I know is that last I talked to them, they were going to New Jersey, which, okay.
Yeah.
You have Corbin in November. But between now and either New Jersey, Kentucky, whatever, and Corbin, there is a giant 4 or 5 week question mark there. And I just don't know if you're going to find a spot where she's going to do. So I thought we were paid fair for it. And a lot of the other horses we've sold, I mean, we're not. I'm only human. I'm not going to be right all the time, but I need to continue to do what I think is right, and it's worked well so far. So
she's at a Blue Yonder.
That's right. Yeah. Actually, Keith, I think, has a sister to her or something racing in Ontario. I forgot until you just said Blue Yonder. She had a My MVP, I think it was My MVP, sister or brother sell last year in the sale. And I until you just said it, I forgot all about it. But there's a horse, I don't know if she's racing or not, in Ontario. Jim, what say you?
Well, I grew up playing competitive sports when I was young, so I carried that competitive edge with me all my life through business, through sports, through whatever. And in order to love it a lot, there has to be some success along the way. I've owned, like Steve, I've owned horses for over 40 years. And I've had some pretty lean years out west where we didn't make a lot of money and the horses didn't do very well. And that's not much fun. There's not a lot of entertainment value when your horses are doing poorly. Mm-hmm. And success breeds success. And I think the best indication or the best analogy I could give for that is the older horses that you and your team have purchased this year, Anthony. Look at the success. Sintra, Kings County, you mentioned those ones. LZ's Patrick, Blue Tesla, hopefully now JK, Mickey Mantle. You could go on and on and on. I don't think without taking the approach you've taken in the last couple of years, I don't think you have the ability or the funds available to get the success, to breed success, to do what you've done. So
I think you're right in that sense, and that's even lost on me, is that there would be no Sintras. I couldn't, it wasn't that long ago whether it would, Sintra was bought in a matter of hours. Patrick the Piranha, the funds for Patrick the Piranha A were secured in under 2 hours, which I could never do before. And you know what, you're right in that regard. And this goes back to how we approached what we do in entirety. You get a guy like Harry Poulton. When we brought Harry Poulton on, there was lots of people that said, Harry's an old horseman. It's been a long time since Matt Scooter and on the road again. But these guys don't forget how to train. And what's lost along the way is sometimes, they have a couple of bad years, or maybe they lose a couple of clients, and all of a sudden, and I said this in the barn the other day, and people laughed, but I wasn't joking. I was serious. It's a lot harder to race a cheap horse than it is a good horse. A horse like Sintra, you just got to take care of him and find a spot to race him. Some of these cheaper horses, that doesn't exist. So what you're doing is left racing against the exact same horses with different names on the track, and then it really is very, very hard to do. and being able to have the confidence in what we're doing and understanding that you can race horses in a confident manner. I mean, JK Mickey Mantle, we bought at one of the very best training operations in North America. The horse might have won one of his best miles of his life today. Because the approach we take is very simple. Buy good horses, try to sort out their issues, put them in places where they should do good, and it really, now that I say it like that, it really shouldn't be that shocking that they do. And that's the secret. The secret is we have expanded in such a manner that I don't have to buy a barn full of blue Teslas. Blue Tesla's awesome. I could talk about her all day long. But a barn full of blue Teslas is just a mediocre barn, right? She plays a very vital role in doing well in the barn, but she plays a supporting role, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And that's the thing, is that we always could do okay with a blue Tesla, but we always wanted the opportunity to prove we could do well with a Sintra, or we could do well with a JK, Mickey Mantle. And there's a lot that goes on the line, right? Because if JK Mickey Mantle looks terrible and Sintra breaks down and our other horses don't do well, it's not as easy to pick that phone up all of a sudden and say, hey, I just bought one on you're right, they're going to go to the right. I zip to the right.
Yeah, this guy, if he was awake.
Yeah. He just woke up. And this guy sees what's going on, and there's no shot he's letting me in.
No.
But yes, you're right. Success breeds success. You're 100% right. We've been lucky, and anybody that thinks that a lot of it isn't luck is wrong. Now, we can coax more luck out of our stable because we have horses that are where they're supposed to be. When you go on the track at 2-1, you'll always need luck, but it's more likely to find you if you're 2-1 than if you're 20-1. And it's the same whether it's Red Overbach. We had some people say, why would you buy that horse? Dave Maneri bought him because he didn't fit in Dave Maneri's. I believe what Dave Maneri was saying. He didn't fit into a stable. And a lot of these bigger stables, people have to understand this. When you set up a system, you can't just change the way you do business to suit one horse. It's much easier just to get rid of the horse and continue to focus on your barn the way you always have than it is to pretend you're flexible when you're not.
Patrick the Piranha.
Yes, that's me.
Yeah.
You hit it right on the head. So we got Patrick the Piranha. We trained him and raced him. He raced adequate his first couple of starts, but not like he is now. And it wasn't until after we had sent him to Mark Beckwith did it become, it got back to me that this horse does not like to train at all, right? At all. Just likes to lead behind another horse, like they do in Australia. Not every horse is like that. I know lots of Australian breds that come over and train hard. This guy does not. He does not like it. So he spends all night in the field. This horse, when he was in PEI, never came out of the paddock other than to toe behind horses, and never came out of the paddock until the night before the race. He stayed out the entire day. Mark Beckwith leaves that horse in the field all day long. He comes in, he jogs, he baths him, pitches him back, just like they do in Australia. Pitches him back out in the field. See you again tomorrow. And that is how Patrick the Piranha is. And because we were training him the way he didn't like to be trained, he wasn't.
You're in operation the way it is today. I don't know how it will be in a month. Isn't capable of doing that.
Well, it is, but
you're not going to leave him out in the field at
a
training center.
No, we can't leave him out at Tomiko. You would have to have a farm. Yes, you're right. So yes, in that regard, you're right. I mean, but we are more flexible than most stables. Like we have changed the way we train a lot of horses. And the babies, you can see the way we try to address keeping the babies fresh and sound and healthy throughout the year. I preached it last year, and we did execute it. We were aggressive in trying to mitigate horses that were bleeding throughout the summer. We did execute it. And yet we still had 2-year-olds that we found a couple of them were bleeding. So you're right, we are trying to change the way we do things. You are right in the sense that success breeds success. And for the people out there that are like, I don't buy that, I don't think you should have sold this horse or that horse or whatever horse, and it's okay. I have people all the time that rip me apart. It's not hard to go on social media or on social platforms and see people ripping us apart. It's super simple. I never do it anymore because it's just not worth it. When we first started the stable, I would respond to those people. and try and convince them. You know, it wasn't until I got thinking back to my days in politics, you know, when you look at the site maps in politics, you can see where groups of liberals generally are, or groups of conservatives are. And I remember the Conservative Party saying, you don't need to go to downtown Guelph, you're not, it's a waste of your time. And as somebody who wasn't in politics, that I found it a challenge. I want to challenge those people. I want to know why you wouldn't vote for me. And lo and behold, it's ingrained in some people, right? It doesn't matter what I say to the person that hates the stable or hates Anthony McDonald. It doesn't matter what I say to them. I'm not going to change their mind. So I don't address them. I don't talk to them. I don't, you know, if I see them on our social media platforms, I ban them. And that's simply because it's noise that we don't need. Noise that I don't need. When you don't really want to talk to me, you really just want to throw rocks. Well, guess what? I'm just going to take the rocks away. I'm just going to ban you. And that's the way it is. But to each his own. You know.
And I think, Anthony, as difficult as it is for some of us clients, like I was a little torn on Blue Bio Deal when you and I talked about it the last couple of days, and even Brave World. I mean, obviously he's coming towards the end of his best days.
Yep.
He raced good the other night. So it's tough to sell a horse when they're performing well, but it's a lot tougher to sell them when they're not performing well.
And you hit it right.
So sometimes you got to take the money and use it elsewhere when the horses are doing well.
And that's the whole thing. When you look at a horse like Brave World, as much as he's done for us, and I don't mean to sound crass and blunt, but he can be replaced. And that's the reality of it. And that's not just horses. That's anybody. You know, at the end of the day,
you got 50 or 60 coming in the next 60
yeah,
days.
I just think that Brave World,
somebody's got to go.
There's going to be a time when we have to have a difficult decision with Brave World and say he's now a 10 claimer. And people don't realize the thin line between a $30,000 horse and an $8,000 horse. It is razor thin sometimes. And it would not shock me to wake up and, you know, go to bed thinking that Brave World was a 20 or 30 claimer and end up having to put him in an 85 claimer at Mohawk someday down the road. And that's how quick it can change. And after his win the other night, we had talked about putting him on the site 3 weeks ago. And then he cut his ankle and we had to scratch him. And it was no big deal. It healed up. And then obviously the horse went out and win in 53. But Blue Bayou deal was tougher for me. I think what drove me to do that was a simple, I couldn't answer my own question simply. Where are you going to race her? And then when you're done with 2022, then what are you going to do? Because realistically, if she finishes off the rest of 2022 in the same, if you can extrapolate the way she's been racing, she's going to have 8 or 9 wins, right? Now where's Blue Bayou deal going?
Well,
she's just not.
She goes to the breeding barn.
Yeah, but that's the thing. We can't keep them all also.
No.
And that's the thing is that I don't mind keeping some of our horses to breed them. Some of them will breed, and then we'll sell them. We had tried to do that with Twinkle in Her Eye, and it backfired. She didn't get in full, and we ended up selling her. But when it comes to a horse that's that kind of mare, we're not there yet, right?
No.
And that's it.
You're not supposed to, but that's where she's going.
Yes. So we have built something incredible, something that people did not think we could build. But the one thing that they forgot was it didn't have to be built overnight. And that's the problem with horse racing, is that everybody in horse racing believes it can be fixed some way. And every little bit counts, but none of it is going to help overnight. There's nothing that can fix horse racing for September 1st, 2022. Nothing. It's going to take time and work, and it's the same with the stable. We came from virtually hustling to get horses, to get some horses in the barn, and trying to find a place to race them and do the best we can, to having one of the better stables in Canada, and a recognizable stable across the world. And it took time, and these steps, these baby steps, you can't always make the right decisions, but if you wake up every day trying to, you're going to have a lot more success than if you don't. And that's really what it boils down to. And I know maybe this doesn't really help a lot of the people out there that are the smaller owners that maybe were angry that we sold Blue Bayou Dio, or were angry that we sold Brave World or any other horse. I know it's hard to speak to you in a way that alleviates your concern or your anger over the situation, but we always have to go to bed wanting to do more and do better, and wake up with the same mentality and the same attitude. And if we do, I think we will succeed on a daily, weekly, monthly, and annual basis. And I think we've proved that. And I think that is the message I would have for everybody out there, is that you may not agree with me today, and I might be wrong today, for that matter. But I'm not always going to be wrong, and I might be right tomorrow. But overall, we're heading in the right direction. I believe we're heading in the right direction.
And I think one of the litmus tests for me, Anthony, and you say it often, you treat our money as if it was your own money. And if you genuinely mean that when you say it, and when you're doing that and you demonstrate that, then I trust in the decisions you make, because you're treating my money like it's yours.
Now, I didn't treat my money like it was yours last night at the blackjack table. That didn't work the same way. No, it's okay. I know you don't want to. He just pretended like he didn't see me. Oh, I didn't know your car was there. Oh, I know. No, I know we're on a bridge.
You're from Toronto, just muscle in there.
You know, I'm gonna read it. Guy in the truck, super guy. Guy in the Honda CRV, dick.
Yeah.
Excuse my language. Anyway, that is it for the stable. I wanted to, we never ever get to catch up in this manner, ever. Now, I really wish we could drive around a bus and talk to our clients all the time. But for now, we get Steve, we get Jim, and me talking as usual about the stable, about what you see. Now, what do you guys see for the sale? What do you want to see for the sales this year? Anything in particular?
Well, I haven't really gone through them, but I mean, it's the same old for me. I open up the catalog, I sort it out on my iPad by trotter and by sire, and I just start going at it. And you and I kind of look for the same horses. Mm-hmm. That's what makes it so much fun for me to be at the sale with you. Mm-hmm. And I lean Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Kentucky, I guess, but it's not really a state. I mean, it's a jurisdiction, but it's not a
it's in flux program. Because everybody fits Kentucky.
Yeah,
that is bred in Kentucky.
Yeah,
or born in.
Yeah,
I guess born in
well, have some mayor residency in Kentucky.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, just to go full circle with me for a second is so when something like this when one of those horses gets sold and somebody gets upset, just remember one thing: if you just don't know who's going to be in that stall next that you might own a piece of.
Oh, 100%.
Right? And that horse that goes in there that replaced the one that you really, really liked could be the one that gives you, your moment of where you're
that's
sitting.
That's a great way to put it.
You just don't know. Well, Steve Boston told me that years ago. You just don't know who's going to fill that stall when you sell one.
That's right.
You just don't know.
And that's a great way to put it. And I think, I find myself doing that too. But I have to, I talked about this in another video, how, I preach, moving the horses if they're not competitive, but I get stuck sometimes. A perfect example is Twinbee Habanero. I was so certain that this horse would come around that I did afford him a lot more leeway than I've afforded any other horses. And Nexus carriage. And, really what it boiled down to was I was wrong. And, it just goes to show that I'm not always right. I do make mistakes, but at the same time, that's human nature. So I love the direction we're headed in as a stable, as a group together. I'm super, super excited about Kentucky, but every day I wake up and I know what's in front of me and what has to be done. And, although we had a good day yesterday, there were some real low points for me and some high points. But that's what racing's all about, right? When I get done with the Gold Cup and Saucer, last Saturday, I literally could have floated to Moncton. I was riding such a high, and then, when Crantini made a break last night, I just felt like an idiot. So that's the roller coaster we're always on. I want to have the highest of highs, and I don't want to have the lowest of lows, but we are going to experience those together also. Look at this Nexus line. My God almighty, there's no one in it. There has to be 500, no more.
Just took us an hour to get over the bridge.
Just an hour to get over the bridge, and there's no lineup for Nexus. You're right. So, thank you, everybody. I hope I didn't bore you. Hope we didn't bore you. But you know what? As I said,
too bad.
Super. It's over now. It's you got nothing else.
You watched it.
Yeah. It was a fun conversation.
It's on you.
For us.
It was. So 43 minutes of talking about the stable, and I couldn't be happier. So I'll talk to you all soon. I hope you had a great weekend. We're back in Canada now. Take care.